Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm gonna feature another puzzle of mine. It's called A Window into the Ring that I just came out with a couple of days ago. The rules of the puzzle are fairly simple. It's normal sudoku rules apply, so that's 1 to 9 in every row, column, and box. We also have cages. In each cage, the digits must sum to the number in the top left corner. So this highlighted one has to add to 25, these have to add to 15, etc. And one more rule is anti-knight's move. So if you ever play chess, the way a knight moves is it moves 2 spots in one direction and then 1 in the other. It can be 2 vertical, 1 horizontal, or 2 horizontal, 1 vertical. So those 2 spots, for example, cannot have the same digit. They have to be different. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else to talk about. Let's get on with the puzzle. If you want to play, excuse me, I'll put a link in the description below, and let's get started. So, if you do the math, a 30 cage in 4 digits has to have the digits 6, 7, 8, and 9. Those are the highest 4 possibilities without repeating digits, which obviously you can't do in a sudoku. And and 6, 7, 8, and 9 only adds to 30. Similarly, a 29 cage is forced to be 5, 7, 8, 9, because we're only taking 1 away from that 30. The 25 cage normally has a few other options, but there's already a 9 in the box, which means that we can't use 9 again, and therefore the only way to make 25 without using a 9 is 4, 6, 7, 8. These are just things that you start to pick up over time with these kinds of with these kinds of puzzles. You know, you start to pick up these different combinations. Those can't be 8, and these can't be 8 either. Now, I'm gonna get into one interesting feature of a knight's move sudoku. This gets a little bit complicated, but bear with me. I'll do my best to explain. Well, first let me start actually with a feature of any sudoku. In any sudoku, these 4 corner boxes, just going to highlight those we'll make that blue today. Those 4 corner boxes have the exact same set of digits as this ring of 16 digits around there. This is a theorem proved by Fistemafel. I'll actually go through. He was a brilliant setter and solver. I'm going to go through it quickly. The gist of it, right, stems from something called set equivalence theory, which basically says that which is a way of proving that 2 different sets of cells are identical. In this case, I've highlighted 5 complete rows of the grid in orange, each row, based on the rules of Sudoku, will contain the digits from 1 to 9. This box also has one of those sets, so I'm going to remove this box. Now, orange has 4 sets of the digits from 1 to 9. Now, what we can also say is that I've highlighted 4 columns of the grid, and each column of the grid also has the digits from 1 to 9, which means that we have identical digits. 4 sets of the digits 1 to 9 in orange, 4 sets of the digits 1 to 9 in blue. And those are identical sets, obviously. So now let's think about this cell right here. That cell is found both in the orange set and in the blue set. So if we were, and given that we've already proved that orange and blue are currently identical sets, if we remove that cell, then from both sets, then it will still be true to say that orange and blue are identical sets of digits. And I can do that for every one of these cells that are found in orange and blue. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to remove all of those from both sets. And now we've proved the Fistemafeld theorem that each of these corner sets together add to this orange ring in the middle. So that's the Fistemafeld theorem. Now we're going to take it a step further, because in the Knight's Move Sudoku, we can actually prove that each of these sets must contain at least 8 of the digits from 1 to 9 at least once. We cannot skip 2 or more digits. And the way I'm going to prove that is, let's think about this cell right here. I'm going to highlight that in green. That cell, where does that go in box 9? Well, you can see it doesn't go in any of those by Sudoku. And because it's outside of the Fistemafeld area, right, we're postulating that doesn't go anywhere in the Fistemafeld area. It doesn't go in any of those, which means green has to be in one of those. And now, similarly, it doesn't go there by Sudoku. It doesn't go in any of these. So it goes in one of those. And lastly, it doesn't go in any of those. So it goes right there. But now look. Where does green go in this box? Well, it doesn't go there. And by Knight's Move, it cannot go in either of those locations. Because if that's green, it sees that by Sudoku and that by Knight's Move. If that's green, it sees that by Sudoku and that by Knight's Move. So whichever one of those is the true green, neither of those is green. So we can prove that green goes in one of those. Now, we can do the same thing over here. This cell we know is green, which means it sees all of these by Sudoku. But I'm going to ignore these because I could have just as easily chosen that as green instead of that. Right, so in fact, actually, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say green is one of those, which therefore forces green into one of those, one of those, one of those, And now we have this pattern. And now in this box, right, we know green can't go there for the same reason it can't go there. So green goes somewhere there. Now I'll ask the question, where does green go in the central box? Or in the central column, rather, in column 5. Can't go anywhere there, we've just proven. Can't go in orange. Can't go anywhere there. Can't go in orange. So green has to be in one of those. But now, where does green go in this box? Well, if you notice, we have the exact same pattern, right? So we have green in one of those, and we have green in one of those. Oop. Excuse me. Yeah, right. So now, where does green go in row 5? Well, again, it can't go anywhere there, and it can't go anywhere there. So green in row 5 has to go there, in one of those. However, we've already shown that green in column 5 has to be in this box. The only cell that satisfies both of those is that central square. But now, let me show, because we've just been looking at if green is one of those two. But the exact same thing is reversible if green is one of those two. Right, let's actually imagine that in purple just for a second. I won't go through the whole thing again. Right, purple just goes to there, and then to there, and then to there. And the exact same pattern goes around again, and purple would get forced into there. So whether we have both of those outside the system of filtering completely, or both of those outside the system of filtering completely, or one of those and one of those, right? However we want to do that, we cannot have two of those because both of those digits will have to go in that cell. And as Simon Anthony likes to say, there cannot be any Schrodinger cells in a sudoku. We cannot have a sudoku digit that has two different values simultaneously. Now again, this part only works in a nice move sudoku. However, this is a nice move sudoku, so we can use all of this. Let's get rid of this coloring. But now, let's look what digits we've used in the blue set, because we've filled a lot of the blue in already. We've used 5, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 4, 6, 7, 8. So it's only using 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have not used 1, we have not used 2, and we've not used 3. So, but we've just shown that we can only not use up to one of those, which means at least 2 of those have to go in the remaining corner box up here in this 22 cage. Well, if we let's just use the extreme example here. The maximum value we can get from a 1, 2, and 3 in 2 digits is 2 and 3. So let's just say we put a 2 and a 3 in there. That's 5. We need to get up to 22. So the remaining 2 digits have to add to 17. Well, 17 is the maximum you can get in 2 digits by using an 8 and a 9 without repeating. And 2, 3, 8, 9 add to 22. And that is the absolute maximum that we can get out of there. Now that we have a set there, now we can do... Now let's move on. So here, within this area, we have a 6, a 7, and an 8. We also have a 4. 4 doesn't matter so much right now. In this area, we also have a 6, a 7, and an 8. So, and those together rule 6, 7, and 8 out of all 6 of those cells. So where do 6, 7, and 8 go in column 7? They have to go right there. And those are the only digits that can go there, because there are only 3 options in 3 cells. Fine. Just for thoroughness sake, I'm going to put 2, 3, and 4 in there, because this gauge has to add up to 10. And we have a 6, 7, or 8 there. Now, we've used 6, 7, 8 in the box. So what about this 12 gauge? A 12 gauge in 2 cells has 3 different options of being filled. It can be a 5 and a 7, it can be a 4 and an 8, or it can be a 3 and a 9. But guess what? We've used a 7 and an 8 in the box, which means neither of those can be a 7 or an 8. So this has to be a 3, 9 pair. Now we have a 9 right here, which sees this cell by Knight's move, but not this one. So this one has to be a 3, and this one is therefore a 9. Now this cell cannot be a 3, so this one cannot be a 7, and this cell cannot be a 9. Fine. Now, let's look up top. We have a 15 gauge here. This 9 sees both digits within that 15 gauge, which means there cannot be a 9 there. The maximum that we can put into those 2 digits without using a 9, without repeating, would be 7 and 8. 7 plus 8 is 15, and so that is the only option. We have to put 7 and 8 into there. However, I'm going to use similar logic that we used before in a slightly different way. Here, somewhere here, in fact, we know it's in one of these two. We'll just mark that. We know there's an 8 in one of those. Over here, one of these, we don't know which one, also has to be an 8. Whichever one that is, we have 2 8s already in the first 2 rows of the Sudoku. We cannot have more than 2 8s in 2 rows, or we're going to end up repeating a digit, which is not allowed. Which means that this is not allowed to be an 8. If that's an 8, then we have a third 8 in 2 rows. So this one has to be a 7. That makes this one an 8. It takes an 8 out of here by Knight's move. Fine. Now, let's consider something else. Here, we're going to keep using this logic all the way around the 4 boxes. And this is really central here. Here we have a 7 and 8, an 8 and a 9 along with a 6. Here we have a 7, 8, and 9 along with a 5. So where do 7, 8, and 9 go here? Well, they have to go in those 3 cells. But we have a 7 and an 8 up here at the top, both pointing at this cell. So this one has to be a 9. Can take a 9 out of those cells. Now this, it's a little bit different here, but it's still the same idea. You can take a 7 out of these, which lets us pencil mark a 7, like that. When I put digits in the corner of a cell, what I mean by that is those are the only 2 options within a box, or sometimes a row or column, where that digit can appear. When I pencil mark digits in the center of a cell like this, it means those are the only candidates for that cell. Excuse me. But now we have a 7 here and we have a 7 here. Right? So there are no more 7s in those cells, but more than that, this 7 sees that cell by knight's move. So the only places for a 7 now in box 1 are right there. Now I have another question. Is where do 6s go in box 1? This 6 blocks it out of there. And 6 is not an option for this 22 cage, which we've already shown is a 2, 3, 8, 9. So 6 has to go along with 7 here, creating a very convenient pair. Now, we're going to go back to the logic we were doing earlier with the boxes. Here, we have a 7, 8, and 9 along with a 5. And here, in these 6 cells, we've forced a 7, 8, and 9. Right, we have the 8 and the 9, the blue cage, and we have the 7 just outside of it, also forced into those cells. So where do 7, 8, and 9 go in box 4? Only right here. But look at this. This 9 rolls a 9 out of there. And this 9, by knight's move, rolls a 9 out of there. Now I have a 7, 8 pair, which means that's the only place that a 9 can go. I can take a 9 out of this cell. Fine. Now, I'm going to do a little bit more pencil marking. Let's put a 1, 4, 5 triple in there. Those are the only candidates left in the box. Now in the column, that means these have to be a 2, 3 pair. Excuse me. Now where do 1 and 4 go in box 7? They're forced to go right there. And now, it's a similar logic to what we were doing earlier. Where do 1 and 4 go in box 9? Well, they can't go there, and they don't go in this 30 cage. 30 cage is too big. So 1 and 4 both have to go here. Now, 1 doesn't go there, and 1 does not go in this 25 cage. So 1 has to go in one of these two, which means that's not a 1. These are 2, 3, and 5. Now, remember when I said if there's a digit missing from the decimal area in a knight's move sudoku, it has to go right in the middle? Well, we've now shown that the digit missing is a 1. Right? None of the blue cages have a 1 in them, so 1 has to go right there. Now let's go back to coloring for a second. Let's look at this one right here. Let's make that gray. Okay? Now that's a 7 or an 8. Here I have a 7, 8 pair. But this one sees that by knight's move, which means those have to be different. These two are in the same box, which means they have to be different. You know the old saying, the enemy of your enemy is your friend? Well, in this case, if those are different and those are different, then those two have to be the same. So this one gets to be gray as well. Now, where does this gray digit go in the central box? Well, it doesn't go in any of those by Sudoku. It's a 7 or an 8, which are both pointing from up top. So it can't go in either of those. And this gray cell is pointing at that by knight's move. So the only place that this gray cell can go is right here. Oops. But what can this be? Remember that this has to be a 7 or an 8. But this 7 is pointing at that by knight's move. So really that can't be a 7. The gray digit has to be an 8. Now, my ADD is going to kick in and not like having that gray there, so I'm going to get rid of that. But the point is, now we have that. Now this can no longer be an 8. It's a 7. This cannot be an 8, so that's also a 7. But now, from both of those 8s actually, that cannot be an 8. Now I have a 6-7 pair, so that one's an 8. That's in a 10 cage, so that one's a 2 to finish that total. Now we're going to get a little bit more intricate here. Let's take a look at this 8 cage. What are the options for it? It can be 1-7, 2-6, or 3-5. Well, we can see that there's a 7 in the box. So immediately we can rule out 1-7. Now, there's a 6 here by knight's move, points up to here. That cannot be a 6. But remember when I showed you earlier that these cells, if there's a 6 in either of those, which we know there's a 6 in one of them, then neither of those two cells can be a 6. So I can pull a 6 out of this cell as well, which means if neither of them can be 6, then neither one can be 2 either. So now we're left with a 3-5 pair. Now I can pull a 3 out of here, which forces a 3 into there. I can pull a 5 out of here, which forces a 5 into here. But now look. In box 1, I have a 2, 7, 8, 9 quadruple. Right? And those 4 cells can only be 2, 7, 8, or 9. My voice isn't used to talking this much, I'm sorry. But that means that those are the only 4 cells that can be a 2, 7, 8, or 9 in the column. Which means that one has to be a 6, and that one has to be the 7 instead. Now I can pull a 7 out of here, which puts a 7 right here. Now, let's examine these 2 cells. Alright, these 2 cells are seen by the 1-4 pair. It's seen by the 2-3 pair. And there's a 7, 8, 9 in the box. So these 2 cells can only be 5 and 6. But look, there's a 6 there. So this one is a 5, and that one is a 6. And now, look over here, we have a 7 cage. this 7 cage could have been 1 6, except now it cannot be. Could have been 2 5, but now it can't be. So it has to be a 3 4 pair, which gives us 1 and 2 over here. Now, let me just take a quick look around. This 6 down here. This 6 means that neither of those can be a 6 anymore. Now, the only option for this one is a 7. The only option for this one, then, is a 9, and that one is a 6. Now, neither of these two can be a 6. And that one can no longer be a 7. Remember we said a 7 had to go in one of those, but now that's not a 7 anymore. So 7 has to go right there. That's a 4. Now I have a 4 6 pair here, so that one's an 8. Now I can pull an 8 out of those two. Can pull a 2 out of here and a 3 out of there. Now this 9 comes over to this side. Takes a 9 out of both of those. That 7 also comes over here though. So that can't be a 7, that's an 8. That's a 5, that's a 9, and that's a 7. Oops, 7. There we go. Now, this 8 comes up here. 8 cannot go there. Now I have a 2 9 pair. So that's a 3. That can't be 2, 3, or 9, so that's an 8. This cell has to be a 1 or a 4 for the column. Excuse the city noises, it's rather distracting, but not much we can do about that. Just give me one moment, please. Anyway, I'll try to ignore it. Here we have a 1 4 5 triple. These are 2 3 and 5. That's not a 3. Right, and this 3 is rather powerful, because this 3 sees that by Sudoku, and sees both of those by Knight's move. So none of those can be a 3. This 3 4 pair sees all of those, so none of those are 3. It means 3 has to go right there. Now, this cell becomes a naked single, by which I mean there's only one possibility. It sees 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So this cell can only be a 4. And that leaves that to be a 2 for the column. Note that can no longer be a 1. That's not a 4. But more importantly, that 4 sees over here by knight's move. So now that's a 3, and that's a 4. Now we can resolve this entire bottom area. So 1 and a 2, that's a 3 and a 2. That 1 sees over this way by knight's move, that's a 4, that's a 1, that's a 4. No, that cannot be a 4. So now that is the only spot left where a 4 can go. That 4 sees that by knight's move, so that's a 5. This becomes a 1-4 pair. Now along here, we have a 1, 2, and 6. But this one sees a 6 by knight's move, and a 1 by knight's move, and in the row. So the only option for this left is a 2. 2. So I can take 2 out of those other ones. Right, now we have another X-wing. That's what we call this pattern, where it's like this. We have a 4 in one of those, a 4 in one of those. Those cover the 2 4s for the first 2 rows of the grid. And so where does 4 go in row 3? Well, this 4 tells us it can't go there, so that one's a 4. Now that 4 sees over here by knight's move. That's a 1, that's a 4. That comes back on this side, that's a 6 and a 4. This cannot be a 3, so that's a 2-5 pair. Now the only place for that 2-5 pair points down here, that's a 3 now. And that's a 5 and that's a 2. Now that's a 1 and that's a 5. That's a 3, that's a 5. That's a 6 and that's a 1. And that's a 7 because of that 6 there. And that's a 6. Now let's take a look in the central box again. I can just immediately write in a 5 there. I can immediately put a 3. I can put a 7. And then I can put a 9 here and a 6 there. Now there's a 5-9 pair here. That 5 disambiguates that. Now that comes to 2 and a 5 there. Got a 2 and a 9. I have a 1 and a 6 and a 2. Now that cannot be a 1 anymore, so that's the 1, and that's a 3. And there you go, we finished the puzzle. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll put a link to the puzzle in the description below so you can try it out for yourself. There are a few other logical pieces there that the city noise outside distracted me from. But otherwise, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Keep that logic strong, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.